Well, first, Liz, thank you so much for being here. For those watching this is Liz Morris, who has a really amazing company that she's been working on for a long time. So, Liz, why don't you first tell everybody about you and your business?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you. I started a nail business about 12 years ago and left corporate America, jumped into being an entrepreneur, truly embraced the whole solopreneur lifestyle. So since then, I've just become kind of an advocate for teaching people about nail care. I'm a big online content creator as well as we have our own product line now. So we've done everything from the online space to actual physical product manufacturing, shipping, distribution, sales, all of that. And I've been heavily involved in all of those different areas. And so you can imagine with all of those things that are my responsibilities, work can be pretty stressful. But it's an exciting thing that we've done. And I'm very, proud of what we've created over the years.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you do wear a lot of hats.
Yes.
You've been through,
All the hats.
right, all the hats, and you've been through quite a journey with it too.
Yeah.
So share with the people that are watching this, what led you to seek coaching and what did you want to accomplish when we first started?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of a little bit of an evolutionary journey how I got to where I am now. When I was younger and when I was starting my business, I started my first business when I was 25 years old. And so back then, you just have all this energy and you just get into grinding so hard in order to get your business off the ground that really nothing is a priority other than trying to make money with what you're trying to do, right? And as my business has matured and also as I've matured, you run into these situations where you just don't have that same level of, I'll call it emotional energy to take on a lot of the things that maybe I was able to turn a blind eye to when I was younger. And everything takes a little bit more of a toll, as someone who's now 40 years old, everything takes a little bit more of a toll, whether it be physically, energy wise, emotionally wise. And so I kind of I arrived at this position where I found myself feeling really bitter about my success rather than being happy about my success, right? Which is a strange feeling because back then when I started, all I dreamt of was getting to the point I'm at now. And when I finally arrived, per se, at this particular juncture, I just had so much bitterness and anger about where I was because I felt like I hadn't taken care of myself emotionally or mentally throughout all of that time period. So I found myself very exhausted, and I don't remember exactly how the light bulb went off in my head about coaching in particular, but I knew that this type of coaching existed. I've done typical therapy in the past as well. And I knew that therapy wasn't really the thing I was looking for because that doesn't really help you with tangible things you can do with your business. So
Right.
as someone who is a solopreneur, it was very important for me to find an opportunity where I could get some of that emotional and mental support that I needed to kind of reframe what I was thinking about and how I was thinking about things. But more importantly, have that be applicable to my business because my business is my life. So that is where I started looking for that. And, that's kind of how I came to that decision that I wanted to pursue looking for some type of coaching scenario.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you sharing that because sometimes when people come to me, they are in that place of, I've lost my motivation. I've lost my spark. I've been doing this for a long time. I don't know what else to do with myself.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I want to do something differently. And if I do, what is that?
Yeah.
And that mental and emotional life that's happening underneath what needs to be done in a tangible way, like you said, there is a connection between that. I was just talking with somebody else about this. It's sort of a holistic approach. And then she broke that word down into whole list. It's like the whole list of things that make up the business, as well as the fact that we are running the business and we are an
Yep.
aspect of the business. And it can feel like it takes over your life or is a huge aspect of your life. So thank you for sharing that. So share with the people watching this, like how has coaching impacted your bottom line and business and your personal life?
Yeah. I mean, it's impacted, and as we've discussed as well, I mean, it's impacted more facets of my life than I actually originally anticipated. When I went into this, I was thinking it was just going to be logistical issues that I was going to be able to address and maybe just find a different way of seeing those or experiencing those. But it really has permeated a lot more areas of what I do and how I do it. What's interesting about it is, again, when I started, and I think most business owners feel this way, anytime they're going to invest themselves or their money or their time or their energy, they immediately think about what's going to be that end financial result from this, right? What am I going to get as far as ROI is concerned?
Yes.
And I have definitely experienced some financial ROI from our interactions, but I want to also clarify that I think there's that intangible element of what you do that really had more of an impact on getting me to my financial goals than anything else that would have just been, A plus B equals C, if that makes sense. So
Yes.
I think for me, the biggest takeaways, over the last few months that we've been working together are that by realigning my mind with kind of my gut or my heart, which have gotten separated over the years, it has allowed me to actually fall in love with my business again because I have made changes in my business to make sure that my business is aligned with who I am today, what I want to be. And I remember actually one of the questions in, your opening questionnaire, I remember when I first did this, when I onboarded with you, I didn't understand the difference. And it was, what do you want to do and who do you want to be? And they were two
Yes.
separate questions.
Yes.
I still remember that moment because it was very cathartic for me. And I was sitting there going, well, what's the difference? I am what I do. So doing is what I am, right? So I was like, I don't understand how I separate those two things. And after months of working with you, I actually feel like I have such a good understanding of not only who I want to be, but aligning that with what I want to do. And that really has actually gotten me into such a motivated state and such I'll call it, again, alignment that I'm attracting people that want to work with me. I'm attracting new opportunities. My second business that I started last year is actually, it's just such a positive beacon and I'm attracting all the right customers. So to me, that is where I find that tangible benefit is instead of it just being, oh, I got a project and I got some fat check from somebody, yay, I got money. It was more of the money that is coming my way right now is in perfect alignment, with what I want to be doing and what type of business I want to have. And so it just feels so much better than any typical financial goal that I would have had in the past.
Oh my God, I love that. I've never heard it been put that way before. Uh, Especially when you were talking about the intangible versus the tangible, because so many people focus more on that, right?
Right.
And that the energy of money that you're receiving feels different than how it's come into your life and your business before.
Yes.
With that alignment, that's just so cool. Anyway, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What's something unexpected that you've gained from coaching that you didn't anticipate?
I definitely think I've been able to reach a point where I've been able to let go of a lot of the old ways that I managed myself. That is something I did not anticipate through this process. I thought I was just going to learn new skills. And again, I think a lot of entrepreneurs identify this way because we're so used to thinking this way. We're so used to thinking about tangible things. Every opportunity we have, it's either a money-making opportunity or it's an opportunity to kind of gain these tools that are going to help you make more money. And I kept focusing again on those things when we started together. But the thing that I've really gained is actually more self-awareness than I had before. I thought I was a self-aware person when I started, and I've actually reached such profound depths of self-awareness now that I can actually anticipate a lot better how I'm going to respond to something, how I'm going to feel in a particular situation. And that has actually made me a much better decision maker than I was before as well. I used to push myself through things. I used to say, it just needs to get done. So put your head down and just get the work done. And now I actually feel like I can find more enjoyment and more learning and more, I don't know, just kind of perspective on the process than before when I was just pushing through everything just to, make ends meet. So that perspective, that self-awareness, that kind of just vision and being able to use that vision to make better decisions and to make better anticipations or, expectations for others or even communicating better. All
Yeah.
of those things have been so different. And I'll add just one particular, specific example.
Yeah.
So when I started my business, we actually started as a physical brick and mortar salon business. That was the first, foray into the beauty industry that I had. And I actually had 12 employees back then. So you can imagine being 25, 26 years old with 12 employees and trying to communicate properly and trying to manage things properly and trying to get people to see your vision and to be inspired by you. And I did okay at it. But what was interesting is I didn't realize how my own lack of alignment with what I was doing was affecting kind of morale with the people that were working for me. And so it was funny because I exited that experience, getting into other opportunities with this kind of trauma about how I was a terrible manager, I was a terrible communicator, and how, I was just destined to be one of those Jane of all trades who, oh, sorry. I was destined to be one of those Jane of all trades that was supposed to just work alone and take everything on by myself. And so I convinced myself the only path to success was to do everything by myself.
Yep.
Fast forward to after working with you, I've not only understood better what I did wrong back then and have a better perspective on who I was then, what I did wrong, what the opportunities were, but also now I have some people that are working for me again. And I haven't had anyone working for me in between those two time periods. I mean, it's literally a 12-year gap between having
Wow.
employees. I finally have employees again. And it is just night and day. And some people could say, oh, well, you're much older, you're much more experienced, but I haven't been managing people for 12 years. I don't have management experience. And so just even having that ability to get people to understand my vision and to, again, find that alignment, not only within myself and my business, but people understanding that and feeling that energy from me and being inspired by it and motivated by it has really helped me bring on people that are really wanting to help me and are really excited to do the work. And so that has been probably one of the best experiences I've had that is so unexpected, but it's a very specific example of something that for me not only undid some preconceived notions or traumas that I had from the past, but also helped me get into a completely different place with it in the future.
Beautiful. What that feels to me is like a healing experience,
Yeah.
and really tapping into your leadership capacities, which I do believe we all have, regardless of what role you're playing in the world. That said, when you're a business owner, you are a leader. And how are you showing up in that way? And it doesn't have to be that difficult.
Yeah.
Yes, situations and contexts can present challenges. And there are some interesting people on the planet. Personalities are very different. That said, there's a way to handle things sometimes. So I really appreciate that the way that you've just taken this on and stepped up. And it's really beautiful to see where you are now. And it's fun that I get to continue to work with you. So
Yeah.
So on that note, so how do you see the changes that you've already shared a few, and I'm wondering if there's anything else you want to share with people. So how do you see the changes that we've worked on together so far? Because, there might be more affecting your goals in the long run.
Yeah, I think, it's been a shift. I'm not going to lie. I mean, the person I was and what I thought I wanted for my business several months ago when we started was very different. And and I think, again, fellow entrepreneurs can understand this. To me, your number one word in your brain when you're an entrepreneur is pivoting. It's like you're constantly prepared to shift.
Yes.
Yeah. And pivot is such a word these days, but it's so true. And I think, again, it's one of those things where if you're not willing to pivot and willing to shift, you do get stuck in these kind of these pathways that maybe aren't the best for you or can, be even business killers. I think that has been probably the biggest take away from this is that pivoting, to your point, you just said it, pivoting doesn't have to be hard. I used to actually dread shifting, change, challenges, pivoting, because you're so tired and you're just working so hard that any challenge that makes you actually shift everything around one more time, which I've done thousands of times since I started working for myself, it just feels like such a burden. And I would say that frantic feeling, that anxiety, that negativity, that weight that I used to feel with any challenge that came my way, I would just dread, Mondays, because I would wake up to an email from a customer or, some kind of, shift in my business or some kind of challenge. And we're even dealing with some, to be frank, we're dealing with some right now with the implementation of tariffs and, just the
Right.
different things that can happen to your business. And what's interesting about it is that I don't feel that weight and that burden anymore. I actually don't have that frantic anxiety that gets me so revved up that I can't enjoy my day. I actually feel like I'm almost able to compartmentalize better. I'm able to separate my personal emotions. I'm able to kind of gain more perspective around things, take a beat, and just face things head on with more logic and more reason than getting kind of riled up and using that to push me through whatever the challenge is going to be. So I feel like I no longer have to use either anger or anxiety or dread to push myself anymore. I actually feel like it comes from a much more organic place and it feels good. It feels lighter.
Awesome. Yeah. And you're doing it in a way that works for you because it's not the same for everybody.
Yeah.
And I love that that's been part of this for you, which I do gratefully hear sometimes. In that, it's that self-regulation
Yeah.
and being able to manage emotions and quickly move through them so that you don't, stay stuck. And giving yourself that needed pause and reflection to kind of go, okay, here's what's going on. Where do I want to go next? And what's just the very first step to get there? So speaking of, what would you say to other entrepreneurs who might feel stuck, who might feel that sense of dread, or like you were saying in the beginning about how you fell back in love with your business, and then also maybe those that know they're ready for the next stage, but they don't know how to get there. So what would you say to other entrepreneurs in any of those ways who are considering coaching?
Yeah, I think I'm a perfect example of a very hard-headed person that it takes a while for things to, sink in. And it takes me a while to actually make a decision and stick to it. I'm one of those people also where, I also want to say this because I find that your approach is very unique. And I also want to encourage people that just because it feels foreign or it feels a little bit more intangible than you're used to, I think that's some of the things that I would just encourage people to wrap their brain around. That, we've talked about this many times. When I started looking for coaching, I had an idea of what it was going to be. And as soon as we started working together, I realized that my idea of coaching was very different than the type of coaching that you offer. And it was to my benefit that you were different and better than what I had been looking for. But I will say that in the beginning, because again, you're so used to just A plus B equals C, that it does take a little bit of gumption as an entrepreneur to sit back, be the pupil in the situation rather than the leader or the boss. And so I really tried to be open-minded about that, which is you can't really control, what your end goal is, but you can't really control truly how you get there. I think we confuse that. I've used to confuse myself with that, thinking that I had complete control and that, I was, able to dictate exactly what was going to happen to me every step of the way. And so I would say if you relinquish a little bit of control when you're looking for coaching, because that is the idea, you're looking for someone else to instruct you on how to be better in all facets of your life and your business. To me, you need to peel off a little bit of that ego layer that gets you through that entrepreneurial day and be a little bit more open-minded to it, because otherwise you'll just come into it with this expectation of it. You'll be hard-headed about it. And if it doesn't quite fit into your exact mold that you had in your brain, you're immediately going to go, this isn't for me. And I think a lot of people do that too quickly. So that would be my recommendation to anybody that's out there that's looking for coaching. And I also would say that get a little bit more personal than you really think you need to be. I think a lot of entrepreneurs focus on just the business side, the logistical side, and we even talked about that when we first started working together. My focus was on the logistics. And I think even the proposal you put together had a lot of that in there. And again, to my surprise and to my benefit, we ended up working on a lot of the non-logistical things that were happening with me and my business. And that actually was, so unexpected, but so positive. And I'm glad that I was kind of taken off guard by that and kind of thrown into that, because I would have never in a million years anticipated that hiring someone to help me with, my stuff would teach me so many things outside of just the tangible business execution. How do you hire somebody? How do you handle this type of challenge? How do you do project management? I mean, you have expertise in all of those things, but I'm glad that we didn't get hung up on that, because I feel like I've gained so much more. And I think also, last but not least, is kind of like what I said before. I had to make the decision myself. I've had a lot of family members, and friends suggest things to me, whether it be, taking care of myself better with fitness, or, eating better, right? And not surviving just on a Coke or or a coffee, while I'm working. And ultimately, just like anything, you do have to actually make that commitment to yourself. Don't do it for your business. Don't do it for revenue. Don't do it because you think you're going to take your career to, the next step up the ladder. I actually would say do the coaching because you personally want it inside, rather than any other external factor that you could possibly put as a goal. To me, it was almost like a self-care move where I wanted to get out of that frustrated place that I was in. And I wanted to actually change the way I was, because since I am my business, I also need to make sure that I'm the change so that I can actually implement that change in my business. If I'm just focused on the external tools or the external kind of processes I can implement, I'm not really changing the source of the problem. And I knew that when I went out and looked for coaching, and when I actually made that decision that I was going to try and find somebody, that I was the thing I wanted to work on first, and not just focusing on all the external stuff like I usually do.
I love it. Yeah, I realized a while ago that I didn't want to just work with people on the logistics. Because yes, there's formulas and strategies that work usually across the board, although it's not always formulaic, right? Because there is the deeper level and the sense of who we are as human beings. And I just, you have such a beautiful brain, and I love the people that I get to work with because they're really smart and have interesting experiences. And I also love and supporting people fall in love with their business again, even though it's business, right? Why not? It's what else are we here for? So last question, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that would be good to share with people who are considering coaching with me?
Well, all I can say is you have changed my life. You've turned my life upside down and helped me rebuild it. I feel like I've been dismantled and rebuilt over the last several months, but in a very, very good way. I actually would recommend anybody work with you, because you have such an intuition that I have never found in anybody else that I've collaborated with or worked for. It's just mind-boggling to me how you're able to clue in on things just based on my word choice, just based on the way that I explain things. I mean, that level of intuition is so unique. I don't know that anybody would be able to find it anywhere else. Even in, even in the craziest therapy retreats and the, executive stuff like that. I mean, it's one of those things I can't put my finger on, but it's something that you have that I've never found anywhere else. And so that, I think, is such a unique talent, that you're able to take that intuition, reflect it back on people, get people to see things the way, so that they can understand what they're doing, and also help inspire them to make changes, which is really crazy. And I don't even know how to explain it myself. I've just been I've been experiencing it. I've been the beneficiary of it, but it's almost like you have this magic power. And it balances so well. It's not, it's funny. I actually have a colleague that I recommended to you, and she's very typical black and white, very just funny like that. And I
Yeah.
remember, one of her first comments before, she even got into coaching or even looking into it was she goes, I don't want any of that woo woo stuff. And I was like, I I get what you mean. I totally get what you mean. And I'm actually like that too. And I would say most business minded, most head minded people, right?
Mhm.
That's also how we get into trouble is we get too far with our head and not enough with our heart. And our heart has to kind of keep up. But your ability to take heart-minded things, energy things, perspective things, things that are a little bit more emotionally guided and a little bit softer, but then being able to translate it into something that business-minded people can understand in a logical, rational way. That to me is absolute magic. And that for me was the magic thing for me, which is I didn't want all emotional. I didn't want all kind of therapy. I didn't want all, business analytics or metrics or that type of stuff. Because I've done that before. I've had lots of companies come in and do strategy work and, all of these different process implementations. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on stuff like that. And to have the combination of the two really be the magic ticket, I think is something that people need to take very seriously. And I would recommend anybody dive into that because it is very, very unique. And it's something that has helped me more than I could have ever imagined, literally. So I really appreciate your talents. I really appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge. And I really appreciate you being that type of personality and that type of soul that takes that soft and mixes it with the hard and allows people to actually see it in a way that they can understand and they can do something with.
Mm. Well, I am super grateful that we magically connected. I get to work with you, and I'm looking forward to working with more people like you. And I appreciate very much your time today and everything you shared with me and whoever gets to listen to this. So, Liz, thank you for that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And like I said, I encourage anybody to do this. It's literally changed my business and it's changed my life at the same time.
Right on. I love it. Cool. All right. Well, thank you. And, if anybody watching this is resonating with anything we've talked about and you're curious, reach out and let's have a chat and see what's going on for you in your business. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.